something for me?
Hi, my name's Davina.
Well, Davina, how do you know that you're saved?
How do I know that I'm saved? Uh, yeah, I know because I know. And I know that sounds kind of a cliche, but do you want the whole story?
Yes.
Yeah, you want the whole story? Okay. So, it's like, I always went to church when I was younger. I was made to go to church. I say made, but purposely, because I never did like church. I didn't find it fun. I wasn't amused by it. Um, And so when I was younger, my grandparents, my mom's parents, should I say, they took us to church with them. And then when I was a bit older, I would go to church with my auntie and her husband. And yeah, so it was always made to go to church. But my parents at the time when I was growing up, they weren't active believers. My dad, I'm not too sure if he is a believer at this stage. But my mum, she was brought up in the church, but she came away from the church. So when we were made to go to church when we were younger, we never actually went with my parents that I remember. And so um, as I got older, my grandparents moved back to Jamaica, and then eventually my auntie and her husband, sorry, um, they made plans to move back to Jamaica. And so I thought that this was now my opportunity to not really have to go to church anymore. And I was looking forward to that day when I wouldn't have to go anymore. But unfortunately for me, my mum had an encounter with Jesus when I was about 9 years old. And as a result, she started attending church. And because I was still a child, I was made to go to church. And I found this really, really unfair because my sister, who is 5 years older than me, she didn't have to go. But yeah, I was made to go every Sunday. And I absolutely hated church. I despised it. And that's just not light words. I really did not enjoy it. I didn't like it at all. So, growing up, I made it known to my mum that I did not like church. I didn't enjoy the people. I found it fake. I found it false, um, and just really dry and boring, basically. Um, so throughout, from the age of about 9 to about 14, I purposely acted out and made my mum know that I did not want to be there. Uh, so I guess she got tired of me at about 14 and she kind of stopped forcing me to go to church. And then it was in that day that I made a commitment to myself. And I said, you know what? I have no interest in church whatsoever. So from this day forth, the only time that you are ever going to find me in church is if there's a christening, if there's a funeral, or if there's a wedding. That's it. I have no other place. There's no other place for me in church. So that was my intention. So from about 14, I stopped going. And I decided to live my life the way that I wanted to live it. And so from about the age of 14, I said, okay, I'm not going to church anymore. I'm done with this place. And I think, yeah, I just lived my life how I wanted to live it. I wouldn't say that I was a particularly rebellious teenager, but God never really got a a look in. Really, I never gave him the opportunity to uh, to introduce himself in my life because in the back of my mind, I kind of knew that he was real, but at the same time, I didn't want to have to answer to him. So the best way to not have to answer to him was to ignore him and dismiss him. I was 25 and I had the opportunity to move to another country, to move to Barbados. And I moved to Barbados and I felt like I was living my best years out in Barbados. I had fun. I did things that probably I shouldn't have been doing. I had relationships. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's more to the story, but um, yeah, I went out there and lived my life and stuff. But do you know, I would say that God is so amazing because there was one particular evening, and I'm just going to share this because it's just a testimony of how God is constantly coming after us, right? He's constantly seeking us and stuff, but we don't even realize He's doing it. So there was this one particular evening, and I remember because at the time I was living with my cousin, and it was really, really hot. It was really hot, and we were living on the first floor of this house and stuff. And so we got into the place of where we were sleeping without shutting the door. We'd sleep with the door open just to get a free breeze through the house. And I remember going to bed this one night, and my cousin went to bed, I went to bed, And we went to sleep and we woke up the next morning and both of our bags were emptied out into the kitchen. They were like emptied out in the kitchen. Now, my bag had been in my bedroom on my bed, um, on the bed head, and my cousin's bag, her bag was in her bedroom. And we both found our bags in the kitchen the next morning. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, someone must have come into our house, taken our bags, but how is it that we didn't wake up? And it really like bothered me, the fact that I didn't wake up, and how could somebody be in my house? And it left me feeling somewhat vulnerable. And then about a week later, I had this dream, and in the dream, I was asleep, and I could remember I kind of woke up in the dream, and I felt somebody standing in my doorway, and it was just a presence in my doorway. And I remember I was about to open my eyes and say to the person who I believed was my cousin, who was watching me sleep. I was about to open my eyes and say, why are you just standing in my doorway watching me sleep? And then in the dream, I heard this voice and it says, do not wake up. It is not your cousin. Whatever you do not wake up. And I felt the person come into the room. They kind of scanned the room, like looking for something. They walked down to the end of the room and then came back and saw my bag on the bed head. And then they proceeded to come over. I felt them sit on the bed, lean over me and breathe on my face. And as they breathed on my face, I woke up. And it was in that moment that I realized that was exactly what had happened the week before. And so I was like, whoa, that kind of shook me. But at the same time, I was like, but the voice that told me to stay asleep was the voice that kept me alive. And so I knew it's like I knew it was God. This is the weird thing. I knew it was God, but again, I didn't want to accept that it was God that spoke to me, because for me to accept him in that moment would be for me to admit that he was real, and I did not want to do that.
So, did you wake up before the person left, or was it after?
No, so basically I slept when the incident actually happened. Both myself and my cousin, we slept through the whole process and woke up the next morning to find our bags in the kitchen. But it was a week later that I had the dream that I felt the person standing in the doorway and then them coming in, and I realized that that was a picture of what had happened the week before. And so and then later on that evening, when me and my cousin were putting away our dishes and everything, we had a knife block that we kept in the kitchen with like sharp knives in, and there was 5 knives in there. And we went to go put all the knives away, and we realized that one knife was missing. And so we realized that the person who came in through the kitchen took a knife from the kitchen, came into our bedrooms, and had we have woken up, then I very much doubt that either one of us would have been here to tell the story. So that was one of my first encounters with God, but I did not give him any credit for that whatsoever, because to give him credit would to admit that he was real, and if I knew he was real, then I'd have to answer to him, and I didn't want to answer to him. Throughout the process of me living in Barbados, I randomly started attending Nation of Islam meetings. It just so happened that the person who came over to do a talk, he was actually a comedian, a British comedian that I remember from the 1990s and stuff. And he came over and he did this whole talk, and it was meant to be just a talk on history, etc., etc. So we went to it because it seemed like it was interesting. And then through the process of that, he started sharing about conspiracy theories and all kinds of stuff, and how the governments are doing these things and doing all kinds of things and setting us up to fail and everything. And I had never heard anything like this before. But it was so interesting to me. I remember it being so interesting, and it really got my attention. And so even though I never joined the Nation of Islam, I still kept on attending all of these meetings. And something in me that, opened a door to fear, but I didn't know that it was opening a door to fear. And so after he started sharing all of this, I started to go on YouTube to look, because I wanted to see if everything that he was saying was true. He was saying about how the governments were plotting to do this and that, etc. So I started looking up all these conspiracy theories, right? And then, and the more I saw, the more I got scared. But then I didn't know how to escape from anything. So anyhow, I was in Barbados for a while. Eventually I got homesick and came home back to the UK and stuff. And again, I wasn't interested in God, but now I had this whole interest in conspiracy theories. I started seeing this guy that when I came back, I started seeing this guy, and then I ended up moving in with him, and it was all cool for a little while. But then it just started to, my heart started to feel like it was dying every day, and every day I was just walking around scared of, like, people in authority, scared of government, scared of my life, realizing that I had nowhere to run. There was no way to escape. I felt like the only way to escape all of the madness that is in this world is to die, but I didn't want to die because I knew I wasn't in a good place with God. I didn't know where I would be, and it was just this constant torment, like internal torment. Now, anybody from the outside would never have known that that's how I was feeling, but every day I would wake up and I would feel the weight of the world basically on my heart and had no way to escape it. And so, anyhow, I was in this relationship, and it began to feel like prison, and I didn't know how to escape. And I began to really give this guy a hard time. I would start arguments for no reason, hoping that one day he would just quit on me. Like, I wanted him to quit on me, but I didn't have the courage to say I didn't want to be in this anymore. And then one day I woke up and my heart was so heavy and I was so done. And I just remember saying to him, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, what? I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. I feel like I'm just a shell walking. I'm so, so sorry. I know you've moved in with me and blah, blah, blah. And so, anyhow, that was like a really hard day, like a really, really hard day, because he didn't want to go. He didn't want the relationship to be over. And so, but when he left, I was so relieved. I thought, okay, right, now is a great opportunity for me to get my life back in order, how I want to live it, do what I want to do, and everything. And that was my plan, literally. That was my plan. And I remember on the 8th of September, I took all of his stuff, I packed up all of his stuff, the sofa, all of his stuff in boxes, everything. And my parents were staying with me at the time, and my dad managed to get a van, and we drove all the way, like 2.5 hours, to like his parents' house, and we dropped everything off on the 8th of September 2012. And I was just like, great, I'm done. And again, I wasn't thinking about God. I don't believe I was seeking him. I don't think I had him on my mind. But it was literally the very next day that I came to the truth of who God is, right? And I remember it as clear as anything. It was the last day of the Paralympic Games, because in 2012, London hosted the Olympic Games. And on the 9th of September 2012, it was the last day. It's the closing ceremony of the Paralympic Games. And I remember my sister had invited us round for dinner, meaning me, my dad, my mum, and my auntie. And we went round there, and I thought that that day was just going to be a day like any other. You just sit there watching TV, nothing untoward, right? Um, but God had another plan in mind. So I remember I got to the house, and nobody else really wanted to watch it, but me and my mum decided that we were going to watch the Paralympic Games closing ceremony. So everybody else was in the dining room, and me and my mum sat on the sofa, and we turned it on, and the ceremony had this Mad Max theme, like this futuristic Mad Max theme, but it was so weird. It was so, so weird. So anyhow, the program started, the ceremony started, and from the moment it started, it just felt dark. Like it had this heaviness to it. It just felt dark. And I remember, like, as I was watching the screen, something was going on the inside of me, and my stomach just started to flip over. Like, everything that I was seeing on the screen, my stomach started to reject it. And I was like, when I say my stomach started to reject it, not my actual stomach, but my inside started to reject it. And I was like, what is going on? I don't understand. And so as it kept on going, it's like these characters started to come out into the stadium. And I remember, like, there were these futuristic cars, and they were shaped like rats. And then there was these guys like on stilts, like with these black crows that were kind of like on stilts and everything. And it was just fire everywhere, and just these dark looking characters, and these people's faces were painted and all kinds of things. And I just remember looking at the screen, like being so disturbed by what I was seeing. And I was like, what is going on? I don't understand what is going on. How does any of this have anything to do with the Olympics, with the Paralympics? And as I was watching, I remember the thing that disturbed me the most was like these guys came out and they had like these flamethrowers. They had these fire packs on their back, and they kind of took them off, and then they started burning stuff into the grass. And I was like, what are they burning into the grass? This is wrong. I don't know how else to explain it, but this is wrong. And I was praying on the inside of me. I didn't realize I was praying, but I was praying on the inside of me. I was like, please let those be flags. Please let them be burning like flags or something in the grass. But when the camera pulled back, it was like these symbols. They had burnt like these symbols on the grass. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, I mean, you can go investigate for yourself. It's there, right? And they were just burning these symbols onto the grass. And I just remember my whole inside just being like, I don't like this. I don't like this. This feels so demonic to me. It feels so demonic. It was at that stage that the camera kind of panned over, because obviously it's a closing ceremony. So there was like heads of state there was government, there was royalty, like I think the Queen was there, all kinds of things. And the camera kind of panned over these people. Now, bearing in mind, like, God is so good, because I had this fear of authority and government, etc., based on these conspiracy theories. And here it was, the camera's now panning over all these people that I built a dislike towards. And in that moment, everything went so quiet. And then I just heard this voice. He said, you cannot put your trust in these people. The only one you can put your trust in is me. And then he went on to say, he said, you are in the world is lost. Therefore, you are lost. You need me. And I kid you not, when I heard that, I didn't hear it here. I heard it here, like in the pit of my stomach, to the very core of my being. And it shook me so hard. And I was like, what? Like, what? And I knew that the voice, I knew it was God. I knew it was God. And in that moment, it's like I heard my inside speak back. And I heard myself say, and I said, Lord, and I had never referred to God as Lord before. But the internal part of me said, Lord, if what you are showing me is for real, preserve my life just one more week, and I will be in your house and I will serve you. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, who said that? Like, who said that? Because it didn't come out of my mouth. It was just, I was like, I don't even talk like that. Who said that? But I knew it was me. I knew I said that. And again, everything after that just went silent. It just went silent. I just turned to my mum on the sofa and I said, I don't know, Mum, I can't watch this anymore. I said, it feels demonic and I can't watch this anymore. And I remember her saying to me, she said, I'm glad you said something, because I felt the same way. And so at that moment, she switched over the TV, and I remember it was Dragon's Den on the other side, which is basically like Shark Tank, the American version of Shark Tank, but we call it Dragon's Den here in the UK. And I remember sitting there trying to watch Dragon's Den, and I remember just wanting to cry. Like, I was on the sofa and I just wanted to cry, because even their conversation, the things they were saying, and it wasn't even anything that I would have perceived as evil or dark or anything, but I felt like in that moment, I felt like light had flooded my heart, and anything that was not light, I could see it for what it was. And everything felt so heavy and so dark and so like, oh my gosh, how was I okay with all of this? I could hear my sister and her partner at the time's conversation, and I wanted to cry. It was just, I just couldn't sit there. And then after a while, every thought, everything disappeared. Now, prior to this, I had never really read the Bible. I had no interest in the Bible. But about a couple years ahead of time, a couple years before that, my auntie had given all of her nieces and nephews Bibles for Christmas. And I had said, she gave me my Bible. I remember it was a bright pink NIV Bible. And I remember receiving that and saying to myself, I am never going to read this thing ever. I don't know why you're giving me a Bible. I have no interest. This thing's never going to get read. But as I sat on my sister's sofa that evening, um, and all the thoughts disappeared from my mind, only one thought remained, and it simply said, when you get home, find that Bible. And I was like, find the Bible? He's like, yes, when you get home, find that Bible. So I was like, okay, so I was eager to get home. I just wanted to get home. It's like the evening just felt like it was being prolonged for me. And I remember getting in the car and just being in the back of the car and just being like, I need to find that Bible. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. Because I was in the process of packing up all my stuff. Because like I said, I was living with a guy. I couldn't afford to live there anymore. So I had to move out. So, and my mom had started packing up all my stuff. So I didn't know where the Bible was. But as soon as we got home, my parents went upstairs to bed. And I was just like, I need to find that Bible. And I went digging around in boxes and stuff. And then eventually I got to this one box, and I remember I opened it up and I saw the glimpse of pink, right? Because remember the Bible was pink. And I saw it, and I just reached down and picked it up from what it was like underneath and stuff. And I grabbed a hold of this Bible and I pulled it to my chest, and I held that thing so close. And as I held it, it was like tears just came to my eyes, right? Like these tears just started coming to my eyes, and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I crying over a Bible? Like, what is happening? What is happening? I don't know what's happening.
So at that moment when you was watching
Paralympic Games,
at
the
that
ceremony.
moment when you was watching the Paralympic Games and you felt God speak to you and you spoke back, do you believe at that moment you received salvation?
I didn't know I don't know what had happened in that moment. Like looking back now I know, but then I didn't have a clue. I just know that I heard a voice and it spoke truth to me, to my core where it shook me so bad to the point where it was just like, what? What is this? And when I heard it, I knew. And when I heard my voice answer back, I knew that it was a conversation with God, but I had no idea at that moment that I had been saved. I had no idea. None.
So at that time, after that, you gained a thirst for a word.
Yeah, so this is how it happened. So, like I said, he told me to go home, find that Bible. I didn't know what was written in the Bible, aside from like, I'd read the Bible. I was forced to read the Bible as a child. That's how my grandparents taught us to read, through like reading the Bible in morning devotionals. But I had never read the Bible for myself, apart from a few, stories that everybody knows, Noah's Ark and the flood. And I didn't know what was in that Bible. But that day when I found it in the box and I grabbed a hold of it, I knew that my heart had found what it had been looking for my entire life. And I had no idea what was written in that word, but I knew it was what I needed. And so as I grabbed a hold of it, I held it like a baby. I held it to my chest. And I remember just crying, like crying. The tears just came. And as I was standing there crying, I heard God again. And he said to me, sing to me. And I said, what? He said, sing to me. I said, Lord, I don't know any songs. Like, what do I sing? But anyhow, I remember at that time, it's like I had my laptop and I had headphones. And I went into my bedroom. And at the time, it's like, another part of the story is that up until this point, anytime I took my laptop out late at night by myself, I was taking it out for one reason and one reason only. And that was to watch porn. Because basically, from the age of 12, and I got saved at the age of 35, I was addicted to pornography. I saw my first movie at the age of 12 by accident. It opened up something. And as technology progressed, it got easier and easier to watch it and do whatever. And so that's the only time I really took out my computer. this particular day when he says sing to me, I took out my computer, I took out my headphones, and I went to YouTube. And the only song that I knew, well, the only song that came to me, should I say, was Mary Mary Shackles. And I remember putting that on and just, I listened to that song and I sung to that song. And then after that was Mary Mary, Come Too Far to Leave Me, or what have you, the song is. And that song came on next. And I knew that song because I knew it was one of my auntie's favorite songs. And then after that, as YouTube does, it led me down all of these songs. And before I knew it, I'd spent 2 hours listening to gospel songs on YouTube. And I remember like taking the headphones off and closing the computer and my heart just being so full. Like I remember just wanting to sing. I felt high. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. I felt light. It was just like I was like, what is this? Like this thing is so amazing. Like what is this? Um, and I just remember feeling this joy that I had never felt before. And it was like, this is so awesome. And I just remember kind of skipping to the bathroom and just, it was just all light and airy and just amazing. And I proceeded to get into bed that night. And I got into bed. Now, prior to this, every night that the opportunity would afford me, I was watching porn. I would watch it and and go to sleep and stuff. And so this one particular night, I got into bed, got under the covers, I got all cozy, and I was just, it felt like I was high on life. And as I was about to shut my eyes to go to sleep, I heard this voice, and the voice simply whispered in my ear, and he said, "Aren't you going to do what you usually do?" And I went, "What?" And he said, "Aren't you going to do what you usually do?" And in that moment, I felt my heart sink. I just felt it sink. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't have an answer. And so while I was trying to think of something to say to answer the question, I just heard the same voice that said to me only a few hours before that I needed him with the same level of authority. And he said, "No, you do not need to do that. There is nothing in you that wants that anymore." And I said, "What?" And he said, "There is nothing in you that wants that anymore." And I was like, "Oh." And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know. I didn't know what it meant to be born again. I knew of the term being born again, but I practically I didn't understand it. I didn't know about being made a new creation in Christ Jesus. I didn't know about being made righteous. I didn't know that he had made the old man had gone, the new. I didn't know anything. All I know is that I heard the same voice that told me that I needed him was the same voice that was now saying there was nothing in me that wanted that anymore. And so instinctively I just opened my mouth and I just found myself saying, "No, I'm not going to do that. There is nothing in me that wants that anymore." And it was like this whole weight that had been trying to sit on me just went. It was it was gone. It was just like gone. And I was like, "What? Like what? Like what is this? What is going on?" Because prior to that, I had tried to say no. I had tried to stop. I had, my computers had got sick. I was embarrassed by the whole thing. But even that level of embarrassment and all the rest of it wasn't enough to prevent me or stop me from watching it. But in that moment, it was like everything just got snatched. It got taken and the desire left. Just everything that was connected to that left me. And I was like, "Oh my God, what in the world is this? And who are you? Like, who are you? How did you do that? Like, how did you do that?" And I remember for the first time in forever where I had the opportunity to watch what I wanted to watch, I chose not to watch it. And I went to bed that night and went to sleep. And that was the first night in the beginning of my journey of never watching porn again. That thing was broken. It was gone. It was dead, right? Satan tried to tempt me thereafter. Like he tried to come back with stuff. Like every single time I went to bed afterwards, I would have dreams sometimes, and he would try and invade those dreams. But I would find myself saying no in my dream, and each time I said no in my dream, the dream had to end. The sexual dream had to end. It had to go. And so I woke up the next morning after this whole thing, and I just remember feeling like, wow, I don't know who you are. I don't know how you're doing this, but you're amazing. You're amazing. And if this is who you are, I want more of you. I want so much more of you because you're so cool. You're so amazing. I was just drawn. I was drawn to him in a big way. My heart just said yes. It said yes. And I remember that week being so hard for me because my eyes had been opened. So now I could see everything for what it is. And like I said, it was the 9th of September. And so they were gearing up, like the world is gearing up for Halloween, right? It's gearing up for Halloween. So movies are starting to come out. There's ads on posters, on buses and everything. And I remember going to work that week and just standing at a bus stop. And this bus came along and it was for the movie Insidious. And I saw it and it was just like Insidious and whatever. And I remember just looking at the ad and I just cried at the bus stop because I was like, how in the world did evil convince us that it's okay? How in the world did evil convince us that it's nothing more than just entertainment and harmless? And I just remember just crying. I would get on the bus, I would hear people's conversations, and they weren't even talking about anything in particular, but my heart would cry. Like, it's like, can you not hear how your conversation is there's no love there? Like, and what I mean by that, it was like I used to love talk radio. I couldn't listen to talk radio anymore because all I heard was criticism, backbiting, gossiping, and it broke my heart. And I realized in that moment how pure God is and how far removed we have come from his simplicity of pureness, but yet he loves us and comes after us because he came after me. And as I said, that was a Sunday when I got born again. And that day when my heart spoke to him, I said, if you will preserve my life just one more week, I will be in your house and serve you. I remember the following Sunday, I woke up and my mum was getting ready for church. Now, bearing in mind, I had told her, I'm never going to church with you again. Like, I have no reason to, I have no business to. But I knew that day that I needed to go to church because my heart, that was the only thing that I could process in my heart. I need to go to church. And she was getting ready for church. And I remember I just shouted out to her and I said, Mum, are you going to church today? And she said, yeah. I said, wait for me. I'm coming with you. And as I said that, I heard the enemy's voice and he said, you don't need to go to church. You don't need to go to church. You don't even like church. There's nothing there for you. And I remember I just said to him, I'm going and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And the thing is, I didn't even know what was happening, but I just had this conviction on the inside of me. And I remember I got to church with my mum and I knew the church because I went there when I was younger. And so there was a basement. You came in and then you can go down the stairs. You could either go down the stairs to the basement or go up to like where the main sanctuary part of the church was. So I remember walking in expecting to go up because she told me that she was going to church. And then she started walking down into the basement. And I was like, where are you going? I thought we were going to church. And she's like, no, we're going Bible study. We have Bible study before we have service. And I remember feeling so cheated. I just felt so cheated by the whole thing. And so I followed her down the stairs and everything. And it was funny because there were some of the same people that I didn't like when I was going to Sunday school when I was young. And I walked in there and there was one of the reverends right there. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, Lord, how? Really? There was still a part of me that was being resistant, but my heart was saying yes. But other parts of me were still trying to play like teenage Davina, right? So anyhow, I went down there and then the lady who was running the Bible study, she just started to talk. And I remember she just started to talk and then she said the name Jesus. And it's like the moment she said the name Jesus, my heart just went like it just moved in that direction. Like I felt, it's really weird, but I felt it. And my heart was like, it got my attention. And each time she said Jesus, Jesus, like anytime anybody said the name Jesus, I felt like the darkness that was trying to cover back over me over the course of that week, over what I had seen, over what I was hearing, over having the heavy heart of hearing conversations and seeing things and what have you. I just felt like there was a cloak of darkness trying to invade me again. But every time someone said the name Jesus, it felt like light. It felt like I was being cleansed from my feet up, and I could feel like this darkness just lifting. And each time they said it, it's like this darkness came further up my legs. It came further up, and it's like it got to here. And then they were just talking again, and they just kept on saying Jesus. And then all of a sudden, this thing just went like that. The darkness lifted, and it got here, and it just went whoosh. And I felt so cleansed. I felt so cleansed and so light and just so airy. And it's almost like I felt like in that moment, I felt like God had gone to the North Pole or something and found this glacier that had never been seen by human eyes. It never been touched by human hands. It was clear as crystal. This thing was clear as crystal. And there was, I remember, it's like the picture that I had was like this water that was just trickling down this glacier. And it's like it was coming off in drips in the bottom. And I felt like he just grabbed this glass and he put the glass at the bottom of this glacier and it filled up with this crystal clear water. So he handed me the glass and he said, drink. And as I began to drink the water, I felt like everything it touched, every cell, everything, it cleansed me of every imperfection. And it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is, but whatever this is, I want it all and I want more and I cannot get enough. And it was in that moment that he gave me a thirst for him. He gave me a thirst for the word. He opened my eyes. And from that day forth, he began to show me every single day how he loved me, how he always loved me, how he was pursuing me, how he had me on his mind. Everything. He set me free. And from that day, from that time back in 2012 to now, he has just repeatedly over and over and over show me his goodness, and I'm forever grateful. He took the debate out of who he was for me. Like, I never have to debate who Jesus is. I never have to argue about anything concerning, the Bible, if it's true or not. I know it's true. I know he's true. I know he's the truth, because he took my life and he changed it, and he didn't ask me for anything. He didn't ask me for anything. He showed up and he did the work and he let me know that. And so from that day forth, I was just like, wow, I am completely obsessed. And as whatever you give me to do, Lord, help me to do it, because people need to know that you're real and that you love them. And it's not about what they do or don't do, because I wasn't seeking him. I wasn't looking for him. I didn't even think I wanted him. But in that moment where I thought that I didn't want anything to do with him, he showed up in my life and claimed me as his. And I'm forever grateful.